Good morning, everybody. I'm John Newquist, and we're going to talk about fleet safety and transportation safety principles this morning. They're part of CSP Domain 4, topic 9 and 10, going over a lot of questions on the driver safety as well as the transportation safety principles, particularly marine or maritime, I call it. They've had a lot of the maritime shipping questions on the CSP test the last few times. ASP's always had questions on placarding. Again, I type in on the knowledge checks. These are not the real questions. We can't use the real questions, so I just rephrase them and we do it that way. We'll give several knowledge checks during the time. These are the typical kind of test questions you could get. And again, we'll record this PowerPoint. All you'll see is the screen, so I won't have anybody on there. But we can also use the chat in there. Again, the objectives will talk about the safety standards for air, rail, and marine transportation. And again, for a lot of people, people who just took the CSP last week, they're starting to get the questions. Again, these two topics might be like 1, 2, or 3 questions on an exam. Not very many, but what we're trying to do is get you comfortable with some of these terms so that when you see it on an exam, you won't freeze and think, wow. I need to do something else different. We have 59,000 certifications. Our goal is hopefully by 2030 get up close to 100,000. And we have in our study group on the Facebook side probably about 700-800 people, so quite a bit from last year, which was around about 5,000. Okay, let's start out with defensive driving. There's going to be questions on a couple issues on defensive driving, and we'll start out with some, go into that, then fleet safety, and go into marine transportation. Again, distracted driving, it could be manual. We're going to go out there and try to eat our food while we're driving, or go reach for a cup, or reach for check the phone just to see what anything I'm going to do. And you're going to have your wheel, and you're going to take your hands off it to reach. Could be an issue. Visual means you're watching something else. Very much a problem. Distracted driving is a very common cause of accidents, well over 1/4 of the accidents. And cognitive, I mean, you're so wrapped up in a conversation that you just take off and you tune out some of the work or some of the road that you're seeing, or you don't even remember what you did for the last 5 minutes and you're just still driving. So again, manual distraction, anything you're doing that you're eating or drinking, adjusting the car control. If you're going, very fast at like 90 kilometers an hour, 60 miles an hour, then you're covering quite a distance if you're off there for 3-4 seconds. So anything, that you are doing, not focusing on the road, could be a couple seconds. And if something stops very fast, you're not going to, be able to deal with it. Visual distractions, we all see it. A lot of people have the map on their phone or a visual display that they can see while they're driving. It has voice as well as visual, but again, if you're in very much heavy traffic, that is something you might have to kind of listen for instead of maybe trying to look at a lot, because if people are hitting the brakes a lot, you're going to need to stop fast. Almost all the time when you hit a truck like this car did, it's going to be a lot of damage. The truck may not have much damage in it, but you would be at fault because you're not keeping safe enough distance. And I'm always conscious that there's a ability to make a video on a screen, and then they're selling them, and you could pop up YouTube or other TikTok and be watching that video, and then you're not really watching the road at all. Defensive driving, again, anything you're going to take your mind off and start talking is going to be cognitive. Means your brain is focused on the conversation. You can get daydreaming. It could relate to fatigue. There's a lot of correlation with fatigue. Again, if you get less than 4 hours of sleep for a couple weeks in a row, then fatigue is going to make you have mistakes that you never thought you would possible. You'll say things you shouldn't have, or you will do things or make mistakes that you should never ever do normally. But again, there's a lot of times drama on the phone or anything else, and that's going to cause you to focus on that conversation more than the road. So that's going to be an issue that's going to come out there. Young drivers very particularly have a habit of looking to the person they're talking to, and that is a hard habit to break because that's just considered courtesy to look at the person instead of facing forward and driving. So we'll go through some knowledge checks. Which of the following is an example of cognitive distraction? So we can get on the chat and we can type in A, B, or C, or D. A, adjusting the radio. B, talking to a passenger. C, watching a roadside billboard. D, eating a snack. Cognitive distraction. It is B. Talking to a passenger is your mind is active with that conversation. Okay, knowledge check number 2. Driving distraction can be classified in 3 main types. A, kinesthetic reflex experience. B, visual auditory feeling. C, speeding, tailgating, inattention. D, manual visual cognitive. And the answer is D, manual visual cognitive. Good job. Fatigue is where you're exhausted either physically or mentally. And any kind of fatigue you have is going to affect your alertness, concentration, and reaction time, and significantly increases your risk of accidents. Again, the RAND study several years ago, about 4 or 5 years ago, came out with 7 is ideal sleep. But if you get less than 4 hours of sleep for 2 weeks in a row, that's where you're going to have several mistakes and almost 3 to 7 times more accidents too. So always trying to talk about 7 to 9 hours of sleep. That means hopefully you can set a schedule. If you have alternative hours where you might work 12 hours one day, 5 hours another day, that's pretty tough. But we always tell people in driving, start the trip earlier because you're more awake during the early hours instead of late night. And then, don't drive 10 hours straight. I know some people can do that, but you want to usually take a 20-minute break every 3 hours. And then if you can stretch when you're taking a break or walk a little bit, helps get the blood flow moving. If you're tired, the trucking companies and a lot transportation people take a nap. It doesn't have to be a 3-hour nap. It could be okay if you're that tired, but the idea is that if you can just sit there and rest and relax and try to get some energy back. Again, your first 15 minutes that you're waking up, as somebody said, the coffee time or tea, you're not quite getting the caffeine or anything else. That could be an issue. You're going to react slower because you're still kind of groggy. And then 150 milligrams of coffee or 2 cups of coffee helps out a lot of people. And one of the things that's coming out is what they're calling a fatigue monitor system. It kind of shines a light on the person's face, and they can see if the person's yawning or drifting or nodding their head and not paying attention. And then the system, which looks like that at the bottom, there's different versions of it, would say, "Hey, Joel, are you okay?" "Oh, I'm just a little tired." Well, maybe the rest stop that's coming up, you might want to pull off and just take a 30-minute nap. Okay, I'll go and do that. And that's what they're going to watch, because as the car and the technology gets smarter, people are going to be able to be picked up, because a lot of times people just figure, I got to get home. It's a 2-hour drive. It's going to be a problem. So you need to think about what works the best. What's a common side of driver fatigue? Knowledge check number 3. A, increased alertness. B, improved reaction time. C, difficulty staying focused. D, enhanced night vision. And it is C, difficulty staying focused. Remember, in the test on both ASP and CSP, there's going to be 200 questions. There are going to be some easy ones, and then As they go to more and more scenario-based questions, it's a very common to see two bad answers and two good ones, and it's going to be tough between the two good ones to choose. But that's okay. At least you got the two bad ones out. You have a 50-50 chance. Do not change your answer once you pick which one you think is right. Having looked at thousands of answers over the years, you are right 50% of the time, and you only get 25% right when you change it. One of the things they talk about for trucking and transport is doing a pre-trip inspection. Generally, what we want to do is make sure when we do this that all mechanical issues are good and all the safety devices work on the vehicle, from the horn to the backup alarm to the lights on the vehicle, the turn signals. And this is usually going to be required to be done for anybody who's driving a commercial vehicle, like a truck or a trailer, not a personal car or a small pickup truck. Again, most of these have to keep records of this, and that's a big deal. I've had several cases in safety where equipment has backed up over a person and they were missing the backup alarms, which could have notified somebody that was working behind the truck that this vehicle was slowly backing up. What is the purpose of the pre-trip inspection? Knowledge check number 4. Check the vehicle's fuel level. B, to ensure the safety features are functioning properly. C, to inspect the vehicle's tire for proper inflation. D, to review the vehicle's maintenance history. And this is a good example of there's two good answers and then two bad answers, and you're trying to check which of these two good answers is the best. And again, B is the answer. Sure, all safety features are functioning. Yes, you want to check for proper inflation, but this is a good way to take a look at it. There's a good answer and then a sort of good answer. So this is one of those things that which one is the best is going to be often a tough choice in some of these questions. Key components of fleet telematics. As everything is starting to go through the GPS and data is real time, the bigger trucking companies like JB Hunt, who I've got to work with, they're going to track every single vehicle, how fast that vehicle is going, what's the traffic up ahead, and they can literally give directions to have the driver change their route to avoid, something like a 2-hour backup due to a severe accident. It can watch the health of the vehicle. It can tell the miles per gallon. They can tell what percentage of the time the vehicle's not moving. And again, it's all through, transmitting the data from the driver to the company via, a telematic system. And again, the big thing of benefits of it is that, every vehicle is going to be optimized. You're going to be able to know where it's at, and you can plan the route pickups a lot better. Instead of stopping at 5 spots, you can put it so you can go to the most closest one, then the next closest one, and optimize it for fuel consumption. And again, it's going to pick up things like maintenance costs. We need to change the brake fluid. It's hit 30,000 miles, or we need to change the transmission fluid at 50,000 miles. And it could start telling people that bring the vehicle back, drop it off, and then we're going to get it fixed. This makes it a lot easier when you're juggling fleets of thousands of vehicles and stuff. Even a fleet of 50 vehicles, you definitely want to have this done. Again, your record is going to be improved. And then they watch things like harsh braking. Several insurance companies in the United States have apps that are on your phone that when you put this data in for your car, you have your phone on, it will tell you that you did a harsh braking 5 times during this trip. You sped beyond the speed limit 68% of the time. And it's data the insurance company would look at. Good. Harsh braking often indicates that you're tailgating. For some companies that I've worked with, they get 30% discount if they can keep their driver score at 100 by, taking off every time you go in and harsh brake. You might lose 3 points, and eventually you will get no discount. But this is an issue they're seeing a lot. There are people who drive very good and very cautiously and save money, and then there's other ones that go in there. Also, they find out there's new ones now that it can tell you went over the red line or the yellow line because you're drifting because you're tired, and that could be an issue too. So ideally, the future is going to be, there's going to be autonomous trucks. We have Baidu make autonomous cabs in China, at Wuhan, Waymo in San Francisco. These are vehicles that they don't have to pay a salary that'll drive it. I see this coming up in the next 5 years. You're going to have a fleet of driverless trucks and vehicles that deliver product to a company, and they get unloaded, and it'll stop at a fuel gas station at 10 miles on the route, fill up, and somebody with that station will pump it, and then it'll go on its way. And they're looking at this would be less likely to have accidents and save fuel and everything else. So it's coming out, and how we manage that is going to be, something safety is also going to get involved in. Knowledge check 5. What is the primary benefit of using telematics and fleet management? A, to monitor real-time entertainment systems in the vehicle. B, to track and analyze the vehicle and driver performance. C, to detect the efficiency of route planning. D, to increase manual data entry tasks. Increase manual entry. And it is B. Track and analyze driver performance and vehicle performance. Again, there's going to be a lot of benefits, and this is one of the things that you might get the one where it says one primary benefit, or it'll say the one that I don't like, which is not a primary benefit, and then you have to choose the one that isn't a benefit. Hybrid vehicle safety, the electric cars or hydrogen cars or natural gas vehicles are used everywhere in the United States and the world. The benefit is, reduced fuel consumption and emissions. With electric vehicle, we're not emitting any kind of gases outside. Technically, it's supposed to be lower operating cost. I see that in California for these vehicles, but there's also a lot more maintenance that may be required in retrofitting a facility to accommodate these. Corporate social responsibility is something a lot of people like to do in reducing their carbon footprint. They talk about it, and the theory is that because they have a lot of data and the vehicles can tell how close you are while you're driving, it's going to be more safe and better for the driver. Again, there are a lot of challenges with these hybrid vehicles. We have driver training. We have to teach people how to use them, because some people have never driven one before in their life, and could be an interesting experience for them. Hertz went out and bought all electric vehicles when they came out of bankruptcy, and the first thing they realized is people didn't want them. They wanted the regular fuel combustion engines that they had grown up with and they drive presently. So Hertz has sold thousands of the ones that they bought, because they started realizing people went to other companies because they have no interest in driving an electric vehicle. They would pay more to go drive a pickup truck or a car that they're familiar with. So that's part of the things that, it takes some education. Inspection is going to be a little bit different. You're not going to go for an oil change on an electric vehicle, but you have to do inspections to make sure everything does work. And again, the vehicles, when you have the telematics, they can tell what percentage of the vehicle is charged. Okay, we're at a 30% charge. You're going to have to go to this charging station at this mile marker and charge up and let it sit for 30 minutes, and then you'll be back on the road. Again, they would also be able to do the route and figure out how to get to the charging stations for these electric vehicles if you're doing some longer hauls. Again, one of the things that they don't talk about in a lot of these challenges is fire protection. These electric vehicles, like from like a Tesla basic sedan, if they catch on fire, it's a very difficult fire to put out, and it takes sometimes just a lot of water and foam just to cool it and shield it from the area. But sometimes these lithium, battery cars are going to burn quite a bit. Okay, which is the following unique safety consideration for fleets operating a hybrid vehicle compared to conventional gasoline vehicles? This is knowledge check 6. A, tire pressure monitoring systems are less accurate on hybrid vehicles. B, high voltage electrical systems require specialized training for maintenance and repair. C, hybrid vehicles are most likely to be involved in rear-end collisions. D, brake fluid levels need to be checked more frequently in hybrid vehicles. All right, very good. Everybody got it. Is correct. Is B. High voltage electrical systems require specialized training for maintenance and repair. And some of these vehicles are like 300 volts. It could be all DC current instead of alternating current. So you need to have some training in that. Then managing fleet safety and handling driving under the influence. And that could be under the influence of drugs or alcohol or prescription medicines that are abused. You know, in a company, we always tell people you have to have consequences for driving under the influence. And it doesn't matter just to fleet, it'd be for anybody running a material handling equipment such as a forklift or a front end loader. Most of the companies do background checks and motor vehicle reviews with the Department of Motor Vehicles. They pull up the driving records, see if this person has had convictions or tickets and everything else. Again, one of the things with telematics, we can watch the driver in real time. You know, they've gone through our checks. We can see their driving performance in live time from watching what they're doing, what they're seeing. Plus, we can see the driver a lot of times. Again, we have to talk about this issue of addiction. Right now in the United States, we have 100,000 people dying from fentanyl, which is a opioid, and a synthetic opioid from the poppy plant. You know, it's not made with the poppy plants like, you know, meth or cocaine or heroin or morphine. This is a synthetic product brought in from different countries at a very low cost, and we have to talk about the danger because it is the #1 drug that people are getting killed by. So it's quite a lot of people. Again, we want to talk about the training on the risk and then how we report suspected people who are driving under influence. And then we also talk about what we're going to do for disciplinary action, including termination. And this is where it becomes a lot of times a scenario-based question. So your fleet driver was reported for erratic driving by another motorist. You know, that's where you say, driving unsafe, call this phone number. Upon investigation, the driver admitted to occasionally drinking before starting routes. What's your immediate course of action? This is knowledge check number 7. So there's usually, remember, we're going to have on these scenarios 2 good ones and 2 bad ones. A, remove the driver, interview the driver, and arrange for drug and alcohol testing. A. B, issue a warning and monitor the driver's behavior for future incidents. C, terminate the driver immediately for breach of safety policies. D, ignore the report as the driver only admitted to occasional drinking. This is tough. Okay. And the answer is A. First, we have to remove them because we don't know if it's in there, and then we want to talk to them. You know, it said occasionally drinking. You got to ask the more specific question. Were you drinking before you started your route? And then you can have, under DOT, Department of Transportation, they can require drug and alcohol testing. And that's something that people don't realize. There's a legal limit for you to drive, and it's much lower for truck drivers. Truck drivers are not allowed to use marijuana under DOT rules, where states, and 28 of our 50 states have marijuana as a recreational product. Again, issue a warning, monitor driver behavior. You know, the whole issue is that the erratic driving was brought up, so we need to find out if this person is impaired. And there's a whole procedure for checking for impairment. Usually we have 2 levels of management to go out and, you know, take a look at the worker and talk to them. And if you think there's any issues, you know, have a policy that you got to go in and get a drug and alcohol test. Usually you don't terminate the driver because you don't have any evidence yet. That's a very harsh reaction. That might be the outcome at the end of this, but this is not the first thing you do. And then ignore the report as they admitted occasional drinking. That defies, you know, what you're trying to do with a policy. You're trying to make sure that we are kind of verifying that people are clean and not just, you know, ignore people's comments. So when you drive alone, you know, your brain is focused on the road and it's very active. And as you start to listening to conversations and you start to, you know, very much process the data, whether it be from a podcast, from music, to talking to somebody else, you have less of your brain focused on it, and it decreases 37%, of your focus, as you want to call it. And they call, this like you plug in an iron and a hair dryer, it causes a brownout in your brain. You don't get the maximum effectiveness. Inattention blindness, I've seen this, I've tried this, and it is actually true. When you're in a simulator and you're focused on driving, no distractions, you see the bicyclist, you see the stuff. Now, if you're on the highway and you're going 90 kilometers an hour or 55 miles an hour, you are not going to see the close-up things like this bicyclist. You will see the road down ahead, and that's what you're focusing on. And that's where I always am concerned, because if the bicycle is coming to me in the same direction, we're both going the same direction, if it's a little foggy like it was out today, I am not going to see this all-black driver dressed in Chicago they wear all black everywhere. Black hoodies, black pants, black stocking cap, and you can't see these people at early morning or late dusk and stuff. So that's an issue. If you're having this other area, you're trying to talk to people on the phone or something else, you're not going to see them, and that's very much an accident you don't want to have. Safe distance is the 3-second rule is what they try to tell people. The theory is they used to use car lengths, but you'll be probably close to 3 car lengths. But as you go by a mile marker or an object that you can see, you just count 1001, 1002, 1003, and that's 3 seconds. Hopefully you are going to be passing that object within 3 seconds. If you go 1001 and you only did a second and a half, then you're probably too close, and that's going to be a problem. Part of the thing that we talk to drivers, if you drive in the fast lane, which is our left lane, you are going to be probably 70% more likely to have an accident, in my experience. I see a lot of accidents, so I drive in the slow lane for most time only to pass. But when you have people with multi-lanes, I've had some expressways with 7 lanes, people will take advantage of your 3-second rule and cut between you, because if they got 3 car lengths difference, you are now giving them what they call license to come in and just cut in front of you, which I see all the time. So you have to watch out for that. And if you got vehicles that have the ability to look at and keep this distance, then it'll back off slowly. Backing up is a big part of a lot of accidents. Backup cameras have helped a lot. I went to the gym this morning, and I would say probably 75% of the people backed into the car stalls. Here you can see we have the first 4 cars are all backed in, and then of course the next row, the 3rd row, they're all straight forward. Less likely to have accidents, because when you pull out, you're going to be able to see people, versus back out. The person that's in the white car over here may not see somebody coming in from this direction, because this vehicle's got dark windows and is taller than this white car. So he's going to have to back out quite a ways before he sees somebody if he does not have a backup camera. Again, we tell people to honk, at blind spots, particularly coming out of an alley, coming in front of a sidewalk from a parking garage, so that anybody coming across can at least hopefully stop, or at least they know you're coming out at least. But these are things that we tell people. It's well over a third of the accidents. I want to say speeding, tailgating, backing up, that's the big 3. Now let's check number 8. How do you determine the 3-second gap between your car and the vehicle in front of you? A, measure the distance in car length. B, start counting when the car passes a fixed point like a sign or a tree. C, count the number of cars between you and the car ahead. Use the speedometer to calculate the distances. D. And it is B. Start counting when the car ahead passes a fixed point like a sign or a tree. And do our 3-second count. Tanker trucks are going to be under the U.S. Department of Transportation, which is called DOT here. And they designate the gas tankers as... Alexa, stop. as MC 406. You don't have to know that, thankfully. But the big things that they're going to look at is, where is the emergency shutoff? And this has been a common question on the ASP particularly. It is usually at the driver's side corner of that vehicle. So if you got a trailer, it's going to be closest to the driver's side. You get out of the car, you should see a red emergency stop. It could be in many different colors. I've seen white ones. But, you know, as we get more standardized, red is a common thing for stop. And then you just pull this and it's going to stop the flow, which might be on the other side or in the back of the vehicle. So when you go over and you have a tanker truck, this is without the truck in here. We have what we call landing gear at the front. Here it's a button style, kind of like a red emergency stop button in a factory. And again, that's what it'll look like. It'll be on the front part of the trailer. The question confuses people because a lot of times when they say, a tanker truck, you're thinking different kind of things, and this is what they're talking about when they talk about it. It's not going to be on the driver engine side. It's going to be on the trailer. This is the whole tanker truck. Placarding is a big deal in the United States because we have to know what you're transporting. There's a whole 49 Code of Federal Regulations 172 that says if you transport a hazardous material of a certain amount, then you have to placard that vehicle. And it could be a box truck, it could be a tanker truck, it could be anything. It's a threshold quantity. So gasoline, if I look at it, if we have 1,000 pounds or 450 kilograms of gasoline in the tanker truck, then we got to put a placard on it. And placard has to be on all four sides of the vehicle, and you'll see it. Now, one of the things you'll catch is that this is not done in the United States quite a bit. You might have the rule, but a lot of times they're not going to, put it in there. So I put down the rule 49 CFR 172.516. And the placard holders are sold everywhere with trucks, so you can have up to 5 or 6 of them. It's easy to put them on, but you can see you might have nothing here because we're not transporting. We might only be transporting furniture. Over here he's got 4 placards, so there should be one on each side. And the placards are very much like GHS, where they're going to have flammables and corrosives and oxidizers, and those are important to know. One of the things that they have are some things that we don't see under GHS. Radioactivity is not a sign, but I always tell people everybody's got to know what this symbol is anyway. And your peroxide looks like an O with a flame on it. Non-flammable gases like our nitrogen would be stored in compressed gas cylinders. That's important. Toxic, they use this pictogram for poison. Going to tell you that it's going to be poisonous gas. So they have a lot of placards that are out there. When is a DOT truck required to have a placard? A, when carrying any quantity of non-hazardous material. B, when transporting hazardous materials in quantities that exceed the set limits. C, only when traveling through residential areas. D, all trucks must be placarded at all times. Very good. It is B, when transporting hazardous materials in quantity that exceed the set limits, like we gave for example of gasoline. Where must placards be placed according to DOT regulations? This is knowledge check number 10. On the front and back of the vehicle only, on the 2 sides of the vehicle. B, C, on all 4 sides of the vehicle. D, inside the truck cab for easy reference. Very good. It is C, on all 4 sides of the vehicle. Now we'll go into the one area that a lot of people are getting questions on. Typical CSP used to have no questions on this. Now everybody's getting 1, 2, or 3 questions. So we'll cover a couple of the big rules. I got some bad information about a couple weeks, I don't know, about 2 months ago. But I'm going to cover the ship rules for marine transport. Ship is marine. And some of the key rules on this. The first one is we don't want to run a ship into each other. And there's rules on preventing collisions at sea. They call them COLREGS. COLREGS. And these are rules, that apply to everything, including warships. And everybody's supposed to be trained in this. So just like you get training on how to drive a car, you're going to be a ship driver, as we used to call it when I was in the Navy. You're going to have training on how to prevent collisions at ship and what these lights mean and what you have to use. The test is usually focusing on what the regulation is for, not very specific to the details of what's inside the regulations. That may change over the next year or two. We'll see. So there's going to be rules for steering your ship. Again, you're going to have a lookout at all times. You're going to proceed at a safe speed, and then you can avoid collisions. And again, one of the things that'll come up that people don't realize, a big oil tanker may not be able to stop very fast. It's not like a car. The ability to stop is very poor, and you have to know what vehicles are coming and who has the right of way. With the ship and sailing rules, they have to go out and make sure they have sight one. So when we go out and we have people approaching head-on, they're both going to go to the right side, which is the port. The star right, and then give distance to pass. They're both immediately going to go in there. So just think of this as an unmarked road. You're coming toward each other. You start both going to the right side and pass what they call port to port. I don't know, for whatever reason, it took me years to get starboard and port side. Star is right, port is left. Overtaking vehicles, just like our tanker. The vehicle that's going straight across that would get hit directly, this vehicle has right of way. So I'm going to back up over here. This vehicle has right of way because he's going that direction. So this vehicle, ship has to go toward the right side and avoid that. So that's the, kind of a tough issue. The only trouble is that tanker can't very well turn just like that. So hopefully you see it. You're going to communicate that you can't stop very fast, and they would have to hopefully avoid the collision. And of course, if you're in the fog or early morning nights, you're going to have fog signals to alert other vehicles. You have radar to pick them up. You'll know where the vehicle is, but you have to use lights and horns to identify where you're at exactly. They're going to have lights on there, so when you look at the lights, starboard is going to be green and port side is going to be red, so you can tell which side is which on the ship, if you're coming head on. And then there's going to be a stern light or a mast light that's going to go all around the ship. So you should have that in there when you got situations that people are in a low light or nighttime or foggy environments. And then other ones that you'll have is, you'll have searchlights on a lot of vessels where they're going to try to search for somebody or look for somebody that may have fallen into water. And then if you see some other ones, like you're not sure or you can't communicate because, one thing about the ships, everything can go wrong. Like all of a sudden our radio is not working today. But you could use lights and you can tell them like, 2 red means red over red, captain's dead. We can't deal with the ship. We don't have people in there. The ability to not move her would be a red, white, red vertical light. These are symbols that you would know, often looking at a chart. You will not get asked any of these symbols yet. You just have to know that there are whistles, fog signals to go in there, and flashing lights to indicate the intention of the vehicle. Knowledge check number 11. Who's responsible for complying with the collision regulations when multiple vehicles are navigating in proximity to each other? This knowledge check 11. A, the vessel with the most experienced captain. B, the larger vessel. C, all vessels involved. D, only power-driven vehicles. Very good. And that's an easy question. I have a feeling, like I said, people have taken it. They said some of these questions are almost exactly like what we had on the video or the test. And again, as they get more and more, we'll see. And as people tell me, oh, they got this kind of a question, they wanted to know the lights. We'll see. But right now, they're just talking about the regulations. All vessels involved is the answer. There was a big example of a ship where, you know, we had in Philippines a big ferry with 4,000 people on board, and then an oil tanker collided at night with them. Again, I don't know much about exactly why they collided other than that it was at night, but the big ship was overcrowded, 4,000 people on board. Both ships sank within hours, and 4,386 people lost their lives. That's a huge maritime disaster. And you know, these are why the rules are existent. Everybody who's running a commercial vehicle commercial ship should be able to know these things and prevent these. MARPOL is another one. It's maritime pollution regulation. So MAR is maritime or marine. POL is pollution. And they have 6 different rules about how to handle oil pollution, like at the top photo. Make sure we're not going to discharge sewage like in the middle photo of so much, and then air pollution. These are the ideas that these ships in the old days would burn a lot of coal, and now they went from coal to diesel fuel to oil, and there's all different ships. But you just can't throw garbage at sea. There's some rules about how much you can discharge, otherwise you're going to expect to keep it and stuff. And this becomes an issue of pollution. So, knowledge check 12. What is the main focus of the International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships, MARPOL? A, to prevent collisions between vehicles. B, to regulate the transport of dangerous goods. C, to protect the maritime environment from pollution. D, to ensure the safety of crew members aboard ship. Okay, excellent. C is the answer. Protect the marine environment from pollution. Okay, we got about 10 more slides. SOLAS is the International Convention for Safety of Life at the Sea. Started with the Titanic, which hit an iceberg, and a lot of issues with the Titanic, and they made a lot of rules. And, you know, as a rule of thumb comes, if you kill 100 people, they're going to make a lot of rules if you do it at one time. So saving life at sea is the main one. They're going to have several chapters, 12 different chapters in this area. You don't have to know the 12 chapters right now. You just have to know what the whole purpose is. By reducing the risk of accidents, following these rules of SOLAS, it'll protect the ship and their cargo from loss. You can see that there's required documentation. The ship has to be seaworthy. It has to have fire protection. Everybody's going to have a life vest on it. Every crew that's on there, every passenger that would be on there would be in a life vest if it's an emergency situation. And then they talk about, you know, training of the people and the radio, light signals, everything else. Again, you're going to have a manifest of every cargo that's going into the ship, so you know what you have for dangerous cargo. And then they talk about, other measures for, maritime security based on the country. So again, it's the international rules. One of the things, life vests can come in all different sizes as long as it's approved by the country's jurisdiction. You can have it, and it's important because you could be in sea for quite a while before you could get rescued, especially if you're in an ocean. The International Maritime Dangerous Goods Code is like HASCOM. It is the set of rules for safe transportation of dangerous goods and hazardous material by sea. Again, it kind of has some overlaps with SOLAS. It's designed to prevent accidents, injuries, environmental damage, but it's dealing with the hazardous materials. 2-volume set of codes. So, again, you're a freighter delivering a lot of material. That's going to be a lot of training to become a captain of that ship. Mandatory instrument is going to make sure that they have placarding for every single container of hazardous materials. So you can see we've got the orange, which could be an explosive. When you see a red triangle, it's almost always a flammable liquid. You know, you have to go in there and you have to, it's very much similar to like GHS and DOT placarding. So knowledge check 31. Which guidance sets the overall safety standards for ships, including those carrying dangerous goods, and mandates requirements for vessel stability, fire protection, navigation systems? A. International Convention for Safety of Life at the Sea, SOLAS. B. The Maritime Safety Act, MSA. C. The Merchant Marine Safety for Ships Afloat. D. The Naval Vessel Flag of Registration Requirements. Very good. It is A. International Convention of Safety at Sea. This is a common question. It's just trying to remember what these codes do. The Beirut port explosion was one of the key things that really, they talked about, why this code is important. In 2005, Lebanon, which is, Beirut is the capital, had a Russian ship full of ammonia nitrate, which is an oxidizer, powdered, it looks like powdered sugar. They had 200,000 pounds of it, not labeled, just labeled ammonia nitrate. The word oxidizer was not on anything. There was no symbols for any of the cargo. They just put it in a warehouse right by the port. And then we go to like 2021 or whatever year it would happen, and the ship is on fire in a port, and that heat is so intense it melts the ammonium nitrate in the warehouse and then releases a ton and tons of oxygen, which then caused a detonation. So there's plenty of videos on YouTube and other media. This is the initial one. When I saw this copper color, I says, well, that's ammonium nitrate. That's very distinctive copper color area. And within a half a second, everybody within a mile or a kilometer died. I mean, they didn't find any survivors in that first kilometer. People died 4 or 5 kilometers away from the debris. So they would have triggered it, because they would have said, oh, this is an oxidizer. We have to store this in a certain location with sprinklers, separate so much, like 2,000 pounds or 1,000 kilograms of it in each area. We can't just put 200,000 in one spot. It's too much explosives or oxidizer in an area. So our last knowledge check 33. What's the primary purpose of the International Maritime Dangerous Good Code? A, to establish rules for preventing collisions at sea. B, to regulate the discharge of pollutants from ship. C, to provide guidelines of safely transporting hazardous materials by sea. D, to set standards for the construction and design of ships. Okay, it is right. C is right. To provide guidelines for safely transporting hazardous materials at sea. Any questions? I know this is a tough area to know. It takes a lot of practice. Don't be surprised if you have to do it a couple times to get through it. Again, I will post the video on YouTube after I upload it and everything. So it'll be on later today, and I'll put the link in the Facebook and the LinkedIn group. Any questions? All right, then next month we'll do a construction topic, and trying to go through eventually all the 100 topics. Will be about 100 videos by the time we're done with this. Thank you for coming, and I appreciate it, and have a good day.